Okay, assalamu alaikum. Okay. Okay, if you remember, we were talking about the cybersecurity cube last week, and we talked about little about CI tried and states of the data. Okay, I'll tell you some about these three topics. Okay. So first of all, if you remember, I told you about the three dimensions of cybersecurity cube. If you look at that, we have about, let me make it bigger. We have about this is actually cybercube. So cybercube, in this way, we have information states, that processing, storage, and transmission, confidential, integrity, and availability, and we have technology, privacy, practices, and people. So countermeasures. So we have information states, countermeasure, and the security principles. Okay. So we will discuss these one by one. Okay, so first of all, the first dimension is all about the principle of security. We're talking about the principle of security. I told you it's all about CIA tried. If I'm saying CIA tried, it's about confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Okay, so this CIA tried is a simple and complete way through which you evaluate the organization's security. Okay, so you can say it is a way, it is a framework, it is a checklist, it is a way through which the cybersecurity professionals they can audit the system, they can implement the system, they can improve the system. Okay, so this way, by using these principles, it is a powerful way through which you can identify weak points, and then you can come up with the kind of solutions to strengthen policies and programs. So CIA tried is all about the principles of security. What are the principles? Confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So if you remember, I told you about three of these. We discussed about three of these. Okay. So if we talked about, let me tell you about. Okay, let's discuss first of all the first dimension. That's about the cyber principle of security. Okay, but then I will tell you about this one and cybersecurity safeguards. Okay, let's talk about CIA tried. If you remember, I told you about the confidentiality. Confidentiality, I told you, involved protecting sensitive data and make it private and make it safe from unauthorized access. Let me see if I'm recording the lecture. Yes, it is being recorded. Okay, so confidentiality is about what? It is all about protecting sensitive information. It is protecting sensitive data, private and safe from unauthorized access. Okay, so from whom we need to protect? We need to protect information from bad actors that has malicious intent. So we need to limitize access to only unauthorized individuals within an organization. Okay, so we can think about confidentiality as a privacy. So, for example, whenever you send an email to somebody, you are actually directing the contents of that email to a specific person or a group of person. So it means that whenever you are sending it to the group of people, so nobody else should have to go for that information. So only that people can have an access to how we can apply or how we can apply the security measure to the password. Okay, so there are different ways through you can apply confidentiality. So the message is this should be available or should be seen to only those people who have that key or who have that password to look for your email. Okay, that's called confidentiality, and there are different ways through we can apply confidentiality. Here we have pencil. Okay, We can apply the confidentiality through data encryption with authentication and access control. So we have 1, 2, and 3. Okay. So I have already told you about these methods through which you can apply confidentiality. So one way, let me tell you about encryption. So encryption, everybody knows that. What is encryption? So it's encryption is a security, data security way. It is a form of security. It is a way through which make sure data security. How? We convert the original data that we can call it a plain text that is human readable. We encode and we convert into ciphertext. Then the recipient, who is supposed to be the recipient of that data, will decrypt that information, understand, using a key, and he will convert, for example, here is a sender and he's a recipient. If I'm sending information to anybody else and my information is ABC, okay, so I will change that, encrypt that data with a 1 plus. So it becomes B, it becomes C, it becomes D. Then I will move the data, the recipient. This is ciphertext. Ciphertext. Okay. This is plain text because it is human readable. Okay, it is plain text. Okay, we have encoded just by adding 1 and it becomes BCD. Then we are moving. The recipient will have to decode. So he will decode BCD by doing by subtracting 1. It becomes A, it becomes B, and it becomes C. Okay, so we use this encryption. So encryption is a technique through which we convert the plain text into ciphertext. So only unauthorized people who have the key can decipher the code. Like this guy, this specimen can decipher the code because he knows how to decipher. So he convert the ciphertext into plain text. This sender convert the plain text into ciphertext. Okay. Understand? So encryption is a way to render data unreadable to an unauthorized party. So if there is somebody, he will not be able to get to know about your information. That's actually a way through we can make sure the confidentiality. Then we have an authentication. As I told you, authentication is all about to verify the correctness of the credential of the user, like for example username and password. Okay, so whenever I enter into the system, I need to write down my username and password. So these are my credentials. So these credentials helping me to authenticate, means to verify my individuality. Okay, so we may use some other kinds of authentication, password-less authentication techniques like biometrics, eye scan, fingerprint, smart cards. Okay, these are all these techniques through which authentication is all about password, smart tokens, smart cards, biometrics. Access control is all about giving authorization access control levels. So when I'm talking about access control levels, here we have authentication, authorization, accounting, AAA. Okay, so we will talk about this. Okay, so to make sure the confidentiality of the data, we need to use these method encryption, authentication, access control. So we know how to encrypt, we know how to What is authentication? For access control, we have to look for AAA. So if I'm saying authentication, we already know. Authorization means whenever you get authenticated, then you got to get authorized for. It means that authorized means, so whenever I enter into the system by writing down my username and password, when I entered, so which resource I should have to allow, which resources I'm allowed to use. Okay, so authorization, uh, there are some protocols through which we can give specific network resource access controls to the user. I mean, we assign permissions to these accesses. So, I mean, which application he can access, which activities he can perform within the network. Okay, so we authorize those people to perform these functions. Like for example, if I'm if I'm in a university, I cannot use internet without writing down my username and password. So I got authenticated, but then I got to know that I can use internet. So this is the resource I can use. So I may use some other softwares. For example, in the university network, they give me an authorization to use software I can, otherwise I can't. It means that I'm not authorized for. So authorization is just a permission to use certain kinds of available resources within that organization. Okay. So accounting is just accounting. A simple thing is whenever you get authenticated, you got authorized for, but then you are being accountable for means the network administrator will keep track of all your other activities, your sessions, your information, your track information, the way the websites that you're going to visit. So this is why we do that one, because the network administrator of the system just want to get to know about what's going on inside. So this is helpful for the security and for the operational purposes as well. Purposes and for the evaluation, for operational evaluation. Understand? So the administrator can look very close on all the user access privileges to specific resources to see about any change if there are. If there are any changes, if they are okay. This is all about counting, and we see also we know about the authentication, encryption, and access control. This is a method to make sure the confidentiality. Okay, let's move to the next one. We already know about this. Let's talk about the integrity. As I told you, integrity is making sure that the data in its original form, in its accurate form, in the we need make sure the consistency of the data, the truthness of the data, the trustworthiness of the data, the genuineness of the data. Understand? Okay, because the integrity, the system with integrity keeps data safe from unnecessary changes. Okay, whether malicious or some kind of accidental. So cybersecurity professionals might implement access levels, enable tracking when making changes, and protect data when transferring and storing it. Okay. So let me give you an example. Like for example, in email, if you are sending an email, you assume that the information that arrives to the recipient, if that information were altered along the way, say for example, the third party intercepted the email and changed some key points, the data has lost integrity. Okay. So we can apply the integrity. We can make sure the integrity through hashing, data validation check, data consistency check, and access control as well. Okay, so what is hashing? As I told you, if you remember, I told you hashing is about to convert data into kind of values with unique identifiers. Okay. For example, here is data ABC. That's the data. So we need to hash it. So we will convert the data into different hash. For example, if that hash number is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So the data is inside these hashes. You can change the identifier, but you cannot change the data inside. Okay, so it means that whenever the interceptor try to change this identifier, it will be caught because we know our unique identifiers. So hashing provides us a unique identifiers, and we know which numbers or which unique identifiers our data has changed into. Okay, so hashing is actually used for data security because it is a one-way process, prevent access or tampering with the source data. Okay, you cannot change it. So if you try to change it, you may change your unique numbers. Or if you change that unique number, it means it's not unique. It means that you get caught. So this is how you make sure the integrity of the data. So validation check, you make sure the consistency and the trustworthiness of the data. Consistency, and if it is changed, we match it with another that is being stored. So it means that the consistency, if it is not matched, like for example, if we change these identifiers, so with this consistency check, we need to make sure if it is the right identifiers. If it is not, it means that it's not the right data. These are not over hash identifiers. The hash identifier should also be unique. Okay, so hashing help protect integrity of the information. Hashing make sure the integrity of the information. And okay, that's all great here. Understand the integrity check. It means that integrity check is a way to measure the consistency of the collection of data. For example, file, a picture, or a record. The integrity performs a process called the hash function to take a snapshot of data instead of time. Okay, there you go. That's all about. Okay, a method used to ensure availability. Okay, that's the third one is availability. Now the third one is availability. So availability means that the resource is available to the people who need to access your data within the organization. That's availability. Okay. So we make sure the integrity, we make sure the confidentiality, and we also make sure the availability by ensuring both of these, confidentiality and integrity. Understand? So this is the only purpose that the information is being accessed or in approach of the people that is authorized to access. Understand? That's called availability. So this availability can be compromised two different ways. For example, the first way that the system may lose its availability if there is a single point of failure. What is single point of failure? So it is a single point of failure is actually a flaw in the design and or in configuration or in the implementation of the system that can lead to a situation in just one malfunction or fault causes the whole system to stop working. That means that is so crucial. It means that we have to make sure that there is no keyhole into the whole system that can disturb the whole system. So this should not be a kind of flaw whenever you design or you implement or you configure the system. Okay, so whenever there is a kind of a threat with your system, you need to move your system to another platform successfully. So you keep watching all of the failures and all of that's going on in your system. So if there is any kind of you detect failure, you should be able to transfer your system to the backup system. That's called the redundancy. Okay, make sure that your whole system is available. Always make sure the system maintenance You should always come up with the system updates so you can protect the threat associated with the system. You need to have always a backup system. So whenever there is a system problem with one of the system, and it should not disturb the whole users, the system should forward those requests to the backup systems. And you should also hope for disaster plans. So in case of multiple disaster in situations, you should have to have a plan how to adjust and how to make sure the smooth availability of the system. You can apply these new technologies, unusual activity test to verify availability. Okay, this are about again this are about availability. Now let's look at the activity number one. It is important for your midterm one or your final exam. Okay, so make sure about it for 5 points. Okay, let's talk about I will read that security safeguards, then you have to identify which principle it relates to. Hashing files and data structure. Hashing file data structure, let's move this. We will see, I told you, if you remember, I told you hashing. Where is hash? Here now. So hashing is all about integrity. Okay, go there, we know it very well. So hashing is about integrity, got it? Redundancy, it means a redundant system, the copy of the system, it suits the availability of the system. Encryption, let's move to confidentiality. So encryption is about confidentiality, okay? That's it, let's move to the next one here. It's the confidentiality. So entire failure, single point of failure. So entire single point of failure SPUF is about availability. And we have read that. Yeah, single point of failure is about availability. Okay. Then we know identification, authentication. We know about authentication and identification. So identification and authentication is all about confidentiality. I will show you here. Here. This is authentication, and here it is authentication, so identification and authentication. It's about confidentiality. Okay, let's go next phase. I got so password identification. These are authentication techniques. It's also about the confidentiality. Data backup, it's about the availability. Okay, so biometrics, also authentication techniques. It's all about confidentiality. Okay, let's move to the next one, that is called states of data. Okay, just a minute. Okay, just to make sure that it's being recorded because last time. Okay, now let's go to the next dimension. Okay, if you remember, I told you there are 3 dimensions. So the first dimension is we have complete that dimension. Now we need to start that states of data. We know about there are 3 states: data in rest, data in transit, data in process. Okay, so we will go for states of data. It is the second dimension of cybersecurity cube. Okay, first of all, look at the data in rest. Okay, so there are actually 3 states of data that are data at rest, data in motion, and data in use. Okay, so the data can change states quickly and frequently. So it may remain in a single state for an entire life cycle of the computer. Okay, so understanding the characteristics and differences between data states can help organization handle sensitive information more securely. Okay. As you know, about the biggest concern nowadays for many organizations within the data world is all about security, more specifically about the cyber security. The more data that we have and store, the more that needs to be protected. Okay, So these are actually the data states. So it is the second dimension of the data state. So it's all about focusing on the problems of protecting all the states of the data. Got it? So let's talk about the rest of the first one. That's called data in rest. It means that data that is being sleeping. It means that it's not being used by a different system, but it is being placed in such a place that is not in use. Okay. So this involves data that is stored when there is we don't need to change the data, we don't need to open the data, we don't no need to change it, use that data. So it is such a state. The data is being kept somewhere that is almost not in use. Okay. So that this data might be in different kind of applications, like for example it might be cloud database, it might be a local store file in Excel. Okay. Now the second question is how we can secure this data that is at rest. Okay, so very first security measure to consider is something that often not seen in any cybersecurity book or in manual, that is called common sense. Why is it for? Okay, if you are going to store data that you will not use or analyze at any time, you don't know what to do with it. Consider seriously not storing such data. This is common sense. Okay, because why that data may be used, because there are people who may think this data might be important for them, might that not be important for you, but that might compromise. Okay, that might be valuable for someone in kind of different scenarios. So while it may not be relevant for one individual, it could be very valuable for another one. Okay, so if you decide store all data, consider doing it in a separate environment and limit access to certain individual profiles, even if it is data at trust. Means that so whenever you think that it is the data at rest, it's not being used and it's not essential for you, no, don't leave it like away. Don't leave like away. Okay, so if you decide to store all data, consider doing it in separate environment. Just a minute, please. Okay, so what you need to do, uh, whenever you decide to store all your data, consider it not to keep it like data that is not being used. Means that you don't care where it is being placed, and because it's not in use, it's not important. So, okay, if you are thinking like that, it means that it might be risky for you, and somebody else might use it for different kind of scenarios. Okay. Okay, don't let everybody in an organization have access to the data that is even at rest. Normally we have some historical data. Okay, so you should apply an access controls. Okay, so just to control exposure of data from different kind of threats. Okay, and you can also consider encryption of data. So whenever you place a data in any form that's not being used, you can encrypt that data. Okay. This is very easy nowadays with the many cloud applications, and we have available in the market as well. Okay, so store data refers to data at rest. We know it very well. So data at rest means that the type of storage devices retains the data when no user process is using it. This is a very simple definition of data at rest. So what means a storage device can be local. So we can place or store this data in the local storage devices. You can store in network devices. You can also direct flash storage devices like flash drive, like an external hard drive. Okay, and you can also say when to RAID. These are hard disk drives. RAID. Okay, so network attached devices, NAS, and storage access devices. These are all those devices, network devices, and local devices. Okay, so whenever you need to make sure that the data is not being placed in such an open way, but to encrypt that data, okay, using encryption techniques. That's, I mean, many of the free application cloud that's available for you to encrypt your information, and also you educate users, the employees of the unit, the employees of an organization, especially those with access to the data at rest, to keep right security habits in place, especially focus on social engineering. Okay, got it. Okay, let's talk about now the second one, that is called data in transit. The data in transit means the data in motion. So it is then data that is being that is that travels from one place to another place. Okay. Okay. So with the broad understanding, think about any data going from an application to a database. For example, email, instant messages, phone calls, or any other kind of data that actually moves. That's called data in transit. Okay. So we use data in transit through different ways. The first one is sneakernet. We use remover media to physically move data from one computer to another computer, sneakernet. We can use to transfer data wirelessly and wire through wire. Okay. Okay. So how we can protect the protection of transmitted data is one of the most challenging jobs of cybersecurity. The greatest challenges are, what are those contained? So somebody may compromise the confidentiality. He may read our data. So this is one of the challenge. Even the data, when read the data in transit, the integrity can be compromised, and then the availability can be compromised. So both of these, the three of the policies, can be compromised. So these are the greatest challenges. So what you need to make sure how we can secure data. Okay, so there are different techniques. Okay, so one of the technique is VPN, secured cloud environment, secured application. Okay, make sure the interfaces that allow the traffic of data going in and out within the application, and services properly protected and secured, especially with a multi-cloud environment. Okay. Um, and the second one, you might go to monitor certain user cookies and system logs. This may reveal important patterns or habits that can help IT professionals to enhance the security. Okay, here just one thing. Let me allow me to remind you, one of the most important elements in terms of security is that educate the user who is operating the application that brings data from one place to another place. Okay. Then the third one, we have a data in process. Data in process means in use. Okay, the data in use. Okay, so it means that that data is being used by some of the applications in the organization. Okay. So we can see here, this refers to data during initial input, modification, computation, and protecting of data integrity start with protecting the data integrity starts with the initial input of data. Organizations use several methods to collect data, such as manual data entry, scanning forms. Okay. So let me tell you a broad idea about data in process. Okay. The data in process, that is in process means that through different applications, like for example in the university, if there are certain students are got admitted, they have to write down the data, their particulars like name, address, mobile numbers. So it means that they can also modify. If some of the students want to change their mobile phones address, they can also change it. It means the data that is in process and in process by different authorized people. So if they're authorized, if some of the unauthorized do have an access to modify the data, that's you are going to compromise integrity, not with integrity, and somehow you may compromise the confidential data. Understand? So to access, giving an access to such of the applications only to the authorized people who should have an authenticated and authorized to use that application, and they have to apply as security measures. So they might change the data, but they have to supervised by someone. So it's not about one person's job, but once one person make changes, the other may supervise that change. Okay, this is one of the contexts. In another context, we may use some kind of different softwares, and these softwares may also can leak your data. For example, we may use some open source softwares. Sometimes we use commercial softwares. So whenever using these softwares, make sure the integrity or the wellness of that softwares by before applying into the organization. Okay, understand? So these softwares may forward to your confidential information to some other point. Okay, so whenever you apply, so before applying that application into your organization, check check it by looking at all your traffic coming inside and outside through these softwares. Okay, so should be critically, it is very critical to understand the application security measures related to the data in use before it is deployed within organizations. Okay, monitor system log is very important in defining system security. Okay, so look at this. So you can also, here you go. For example, for manual data entry, I have given you an example. So nobody should have to given a full access control to change that information without being supervised. Scanning forms, they may change the data. They may read your information, the confidential information. Okay. So data collected from the sensors may also be changed, may also be entered. This is all the security concerns attached with that data in process. Okay, so how we can process, we can apply decoding and coding of data, compression, decompression, encryption, decryption. So these are all example data modification, malicious code also result data corruption. Okay, so data process, you have to keep monitoring and making sure the confidentiality, integrity. I mean, these are the associated threats with the data in transit. Okay, in transit data in process as well. Okay, because our main concern is all security concern. What are those security concerns? All about the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the data. That's it for today, inshallah. To next week and next to the next week, we'll go for the cybersecurity measures. Okay, so we have about cybersecurity measures. Let me tell you this one. Okay, cybersecurity, we have almost completed this one, states of data, but we should next week starting from the countermeasures and this one. But let me complete this one. Yes, this one. This is the third dimension, cybersecurity safeguard. This is the first one. This is the second one we have completed, and this is the third one. So in that cybersecurity safeguard, so these are the measures through which we can protect the cyber world. So we can apply technologies. If I'm talking technologies, we can apply it through the different softwares or the hardwares. Like firewalls might be in form of software, firewall might be hardware. Understand? So we may apply kind of scanning tools, sniffing tools, antivirus tools, malware tools. Okay, these are about technologies. If I'm talking about policy and practices, it means that these are all through guidelines through which we can make sure the safety of our citizens. Okay, we follow these practices, we follow these policies, and make sure how we can save the cyber world. Okay, so these are people. So it's all about to let the people learn about the threats and dangers associated with the cyber world. Okay, that's it. Inshallah, we will continue with these two next week. Hey, see you inshallah. Have a nice time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.